We're going to go ahead and begin. If Board Member Lear is in the building, we'll begin with her topic. She's left the building. Then we'll go ahead and do the Finance Committee report, and then we'll come back to that once we finish the Finance Committee report. So, Board Member Wright.
It's my first time using this. I'm kind of excited. The most important thing, board members, you really want to pay attention to this point is board member salary. And as I think all of you appreciate, there are some committees and assignments that you get assigned to that you get meeting pay, and there are others you do not. And some, potentially that you get reimbursed for travel, and others that you do not. And so we now have a policy that's going to kind of update and make that clear. That policy has which committees are not being reimbursed. We want to I talked to Board Member Hanson, Board Member Reby, and potentially include some language that makes it clear when you are given an assignment from our leadership, it's made clear to what extent, if you're compensated for meeting pay, if you're compensated for travel. Sometimes by statute, you're not allowed to be compensated for meeting pay, and of course, our policy would say, we're not going to go against statute. If you're prohibited from, receiving compensation, then you are not. So we'd encourage you to look at that. We will be talking about that in our Finance Committee meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So all of you who are not on the Finance Committee would really, really like your input before 9 a.m. tomorrow, because we'd like to, at the April meeting, bring you a policy that's pretty mature, that reflects all of your input and thoughts, and is ready for adoption by the board. A little bit, I don't think that the finances are, we have the funding there to do this, and I kind of like some discretion with the leadership. So if it's looking like we might go over, that they can say, sorry, we have a couple more committee assignments and they can't be compensated. But they can, have some discretion on how far they can go there. I think I speak for all of our board members. We're very grateful that many of you go to so many meetings and learn and gather input and bring that information back to us. We need all of you out there actively listening and learning and getting chewed on. Okay, anyone have thoughts or any specific comments on that?
Board Member Belknap. Oh, sorry. Okay, go carry on, Board Member Wright.
All right. Next one, from pupil transportation discussion. So the legislature gives us money to reimburse LEAs for pupil transportation. That's hard. And what gets compensated and what doesn't? Are some LEAs more skilled at asking for the reimbursement than others? Is it apples to oranges? It is challenging. And our friends at UASBO have some thoughts and have been working with our staff. And to really, it needs to be updated. It hasn't been updated or modernized or standardized, sufficiently. So the UASBO and our staff are going to work. Everybody knows what UASBO is. That's the Utah Association of School Business Officers. Some LEAs might have, 10 people in that office. Others might have one. But they're all going to get together and work on that and then come back to the Finance Committee in August. And we hope to have a cleaner, simpler formula. This is also important on a macro level because, and this is somewhat controversial, but I don't think much, is we're not getting fully reimbursed for transportation. Some districts say they're only getting reimbursed 60 cents on the dollar to 80 cents on the dollar. Some say, I think, as low as 55 cents on the dollar. And to what extent should they be? I mean, clearly if they're doing something outside of what they should be reimbursed for, they have to pay for it. But where that dividing line is very difficult. There's been some movement and, to simply give everybody their own transportation allowance and let them do whatever they want instead of having this formula. But that is not where we are. So for now, we still need to do this reimbursement formula. Any thoughts or input? Okay, moving on to number 3. NES, or Necessarily Existent Small Schools formula. If you are a serious hardcore geek, you will like this stuff. This makes the point number 2 look almost mild. But there's funding there, and how to allocate it is hard. And so once again, there will be a task force that's going to look at that school level data and make recommendations for how to allocate NES funding. I'm afraid to say anything more because I think I might say something incorrect or wrong. If anyone wants to be so bold as to add anything to that, speak now.
Board Member Belknap?
More than anything, Joel, I don't know if you know this. Is NES funding strictly from the NES allotment from the legislature, or is there some additional through WPU? You know that?
I do not.
Okay, and that's okay. I don't have to have that today. I'll just be interested. Okay.
Superintendent Dixon has the answer.
It's not? Okay, thanks.
Okay. As I think all board members know, the Utah School for Deaf and Blind isn't like a separate LEA. We're essentially the board for them. They did not report some of their financial, especially their trust lands allocation, accurately. They were, as soon as they found that out, they came and have reported it accurately. They've related to some personnel issues and putting in a new system. They now have it accurate. We appreciate them being, fully transparent on that, especially given the history that happened there, a few years ago. Moving on to number 5. This is, I think, an important issue for all board members to understand. When a board member or one of our employees, especially our executive employees, go and serve on a committee, how long of a leash do they have? Can they go and represent the full school board and vote and take positions for the full school board? Also, what if statute creates something where we're supposed to assign someone who is supposed to vote? What extent should they be accountable to the rest of the board? Does that mean we get to assign them? They go and vote their conscience and we never hear back? Maybe that's the case. I mean, there are some things maybe we don't care about, maybe there are some things we do, but maybe we should give direction on those things. So we have, and I'll even be more aggressive on this, I'm concerned that sometimes our staff gets pulled away on certain committees by other assignments, that takes up a lot of their time at the expense of board priorities. I think our staff can get pulled every which way, and we simply need to tell them at times, here are your priorities. If you've worked 8, 9, 10 hours a day, you're done. You're not getting to this priority, I'm okay doing that. I really want, I feel like they are our staff. They work for us. We're a constitutional entity. They're ours. Anyway, the executive staff is giving us more information on how they're voting, on how much time they're spending on committees. And then April 13th, we're going to get that information and discuss it at greater length. Anyone want to add or discuss further on that? Okay. And this last one is something we've been working on. It's something I'm somewhat spearheading, but I feel we get a lot of mandates from our friends at the legislature and the federal government on what we need to be doing and spending our time with. I would like to hear from stakeholder groups to come and tell us one thing that they think the state school board could do that would be better, more efficient, less administrative cost. Here's just one random, example I heard the other day. The administrative costs of grants that are less than $500 or even less than $1,000. That can require the LEA or our staff to spend, more than $1,000 in time. Let's look at that. Let's look at how we do those kind of things. So we're going to invite all stakeholder groups from all across the political spectrum, maybe at least once a year to come. We've kind of narrowed it down. We're going to try and put it as an agenda item so they can only choose one topic so they can't just rant and rave about a bunch of things. And we're going to discuss that one topic, that one thing. If the board, finance committee is impressed with it and feels has merit, we'll add it to the agenda the next month. So we're going to be inviting a lot of different stakeholder groups. If we're missing your favorite stakeholder group, let a finance committee member know. And we hope that becomes a regular part, because really we want feedback from the ground up and not just from our friends at the legislature or the federal government. I think that's all, unless anyone has something to add. And then the last thing, we have some carryover funds. You can see that. It's good to see that we're not going into deficit spending and we're being more prudent. That is all I have to say. Chair Cummins, how am I doing?
Does that conclude your report?
Yes, I'm just anxious for feedback.
Okay. Okay, then Board Member Lear, do you have a motion?
I do. I would like to move that the board reconsiders its motion and approval of R277-508.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion is for the board to reconsider R277-408. 508. Thank you. Is there any discussion to that motion? Is that a debatable? Okay. Okay. So we just vote? Sorry. Thank you for your help, Lorraine. Okay. So all in favor of reconsidering our action on R277-508? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So that passes unanimously. Board Member Gravitt.
I move to approve R277-508.
Okay, the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion is to approve R277-508, and was there a draft number? Was it draft 2 or 3? Sorry.
It was 2.
Please.
Was it 2? Draft
Yes,
1.
draft
I'm sorry.
2.
Oh,
Okay.
my
The motion before us is to approve R277-508, draft 2 on second and final reading. Is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, Board Member Lear.
Yes, I'd like to make propose an amendment to to the rule. It'd be the last 2 lines, lines 81 and 82 of the rule. And the amendment I'm proposing that I think Superintendent Stallings is displaying on the board would read: a professional may substitute in a class consistent with LEA policies. So we just delete
To strike.
the
Okay.
aids language.
Okay, so your amendment is to strike the words "or" and "student aid." Is
Exactly.
that correct? Okay. So the amendment before us is to strike the words on line 88, sorry, "or" and "student aid." Is there any discussion to that amendment?
If I can just speak to that for a moment.
Okay, Board Member Lear.
Having consulted with a number of people, we think that paraprofessional takes in adult aids and covers that waterfront. So that would allow for LEAs to use appropriate adults who would have had background checks as substitutes in their classroom.
Okay. Seeing no other discussion to that motion to amend, we will go to the motion, which is to amend line 88 to strike out "or" and "student aid." All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, then we are back to the original motion, which is to approve R277-508, draft 2 as amended. Is there any discussion to the main motion? Okay, seeing no discussion, then the motion is to approve R277-508, draft